Hello everybody, it's Peter with an I, S-T-A-W-A-R-T. Welcome to segment 9 of, the Dark Tower, I guess. One quick thing I want to say, this audiobook is fiction, of course. The design here is to take your mind and imagination on a journey. Let me quickly give you a gift in the form of an idea with a spritz of inspiration, an idea you can toy with later on. I'll share with you the interesting development of this audio project. I love to talk to people, and it always seems like a shame these conversations are lost. In my life, I've known some real characters, and some of the day-to-day conversations have been so entertaining. They have a classic quality to them. Back in grade school, me and my friends would record little word plays, funny little narratives. We would record them onto audio tapes. Friends would chime in with little quips. It was, in a word, delightful. Today, these little audio clips are as precious, if not more so, than photographs. When it came to school homework, the amount of reading at times seemed overwhelming. There was a lot of it, and we had other stuff to do, like fun. I would tape record my reading of the homework and pass it on to friends. I all but guarantee the greatest benefit was, to me, more than anyone else. That is, becoming accustomed to doing something like that. Later on, putting some of my books on tape didn't seem like a huge leap. Now, I was born without common sense, so I have other people review my stuff. And there's something special about sitting around with people, everyone is quiet, listening to these audio projects. There's a pleasure in the story taking shape in other people's minds and making people happy. Because that's all I want, is to make people happy. Well, and I also want air and water and love and some new windshield wipers. But making people happy is definitely in there somewhere. Imagine yourself creating a similar project. Think about it. But think about it later, because we got to get to segment 9 of, the Dark Tower, I guess. At that table to be desperate for romance, and for her to be the sole supplier. I think you have a little something there, said the waitress. It took a moment for Susie Lee to acknowledge that she was being spoken to. A piece of food, repeated the waitress, demonstrating where she should look. Susie Lee brushed the spot on the side of her lip. Oh, maybe it's just a pimple, concluded the waitress. Susie Lee grew nervous as she looked over at the boys, who studied their menus. As the waitress gave a little grin and cocked her head before walking away, Susie Lee thought to herself, "My God, these boys can't even look at me now." The boys weren't even aware that, in girl talk, maybe it's just a pimple actually means you'd better get a big, hungry, New York-sized rat to chew the fat, ugly scab off your lip, dog. I think I'll get the moose, said Chauncey. Joe liked that idea. So, Joe, tell me your views on the crisis overseas, said Mona. Susie Lee felt threatened that they would all start having a big, long conversation about something she knew nothing about, and thereby excluding her, so she felt she had to jump in order to save herself. Joe? Wait, sorry, Mona. She quickly apologized for butting in. I just had to say that when you turned your head that way, for a second, you look like Duncan Reno. Sorry, it just caught me off guard for a second. Joe was so excited that Susie Lee was talking to him and seemed interested in what he had to say. He was almost bouncing back and forth in his seat as he talked. Yay, 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 yay! Both Charles and Chauncey knew that they should start spending a little extra attention on this girl before she started getting too friendly with Ornament Boy. When she started talking to Charles and Chauncey about the movie they had just seen, recalling the one-line joke, "Sweetness," which is great advertising for the film, by the way, Joe kept leaning in,
stretching his neck so that he might be included, smiling and chuckling and saying, "Oh gosh," at all the appropriate moments. Mona tried saying something to Joe. Joe nodded curtly and tried to be polite, but it irritated him that she was trying to draw his attention away to her calmer waters, right when he was riding the wave into popularity. He was dividing his attention between the things that Mona was saying on his left, while Susie Lee was going on about something on his right. And this was when he was getting a full third of Susie Lee's attention in their conversation, which was like gold. Solid gold. When Chauncey scooted in a little, Joe had to crane his neck a little further to be seen, in order to continue getting the kick-ass looks of acknowledgement from Susie Lee as she talked about the movie. Mona continued going on about something, which was like an alarm clock, going off in the middle of the best dream anyone has ever had, ever. When she tapped on his shoulder, that was the breaking point. Joe turned and yelled, "Would you shut up?" Mona was silent. All of them were. Susie Lee pulled her crumpled napkin under the table silently. "What is it, Mona?" asked Charles. "I was just wondering which way the bathroom was," she explained, still in shock. "It's down the hall and to the right. Come on, I'll show you," he said. They got up and tiptoed off. Chauncey scratched his eyebrow with his pinky before clearing a little something out of his throat. The waitress came out from in back and asked with a happy, perky smile, "So are you all done?" Joe threw the spoon he was playing with onto his empty plate. "Yes," he replied with a click. "I'm quite finished." Chapter 9. When Frank came back to the mall to pick up his residual check, he had to stand in the stockroom for quite some time, nodding and agreeing that the guy who came in the other day was an agonizingly huge jerk. The guy who yelled at him, something about helping him pull the stick out of his craw so he could beat him with it. The fact that the manager had even given the confrontation a second thought was only mildly surprising. What really took Frank back was the near homicidal rage that had built up inside him, causing him to shake with anger as he recounted the incident. Frank had noticed the manager had suffered some considerable balding that day. It didn't look like the hair had naturally thinned. It was missing in clumps, as if it had been pulled out. Frank would have told the manager just to let it go, and to not get so upset over nothing. But he feared that he too might suffer some quick and severe balding if he lent any other criticism other than, "Well, I don't think you're mad enough over the situation." As Frank listened and nodded and agreed with the manager's visions of hunting the guy down like an animal and opening a can of mushroom cloud on his ass, he decided not to mention that he was not only working for that same guy, but also had agreed to live in his small guest house. Simply agreeing to have any sort of contact with Pottymouth on a daily basis was a bad idea. Working for him and even living on the property wasn't just wrong. It was far beyond wrong. It was like a drive-by shooting at a funeral. The decision was so very poor, Frank wouldn't be at all surprised if, in 100 years, the date showed up on timelines, and school kids would shake their heads and ask what was he thinking. Frank walked along the perimeter of the mall, thinking about his terrible decision. He chose not to walk inside the mall, because it was less likely he would be involved in a serious accident indoors. At least when he was outside, There was a chance that a plane could crash on him, a shower of acid rain could melt him away, he could be attacked by a wild animal,